The three things I'm most looking forward to this season. You're Locked On UConn.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive in, I want to take a moment to thank you for your continued support. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button at the bottom of your screen. And also follow us on all of your favorite audio platforms. Your subscriptions, likes, and comments really help us grow and continue to help us bring you the best UConn content out there. We appreciate each and every one of you tuning in. Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate GM. Ultimate College Football HC is a brand new mobile game that is completely free, has no ads, and is 100% playable offline. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Begin your coaching legacy today. Well, there's three things I'm looking forward to this season and that I'm getting excited about. The first one is pretty simple, the Maui Invitational. I can't wait for the Maui because it's such an incredible event. I wish I could be there in person, but sadly, I will not be. I'll be here in North Carolina, tending to my gaggle of children and my beautiful wife. Still, the chance to watch your Huskies go up against some of the top teams in the country is amazing. And it also, we talked about this a couple days ago, where we feel like some players are maybe lagging behind and some players are excelling. This is a great time for them to play against top competition. It's not that I don't think that Dan Hurley thinks that he's going to go in and just play everybody and say, oh, well, we don't really care about winning. But you do get an idea of, instead of playing against the bye game folks like Sacred Heart, New Hampshire, some of the Northeast teams, Providence. No, I'm kidding. It's one of those things where you can really find out what your team is about early against top teams. And it matters, but it doesn't, because in the grand scheme of things, this is about finding the best 8, 9, maybe 10 guys that are going to fill out your rotation for the year. So that's why I'm excited about it. You're going to get to see Michigan State, North Carolina, Iowa State, Auburn, Colorado was in the NCAA tournament last year. Dayton was in the NCAA tournament last year. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a hell of an event. The first game is against Memphis. It's a team we didn't even mention, our former AAC foe and Penny Hardaway. They have a lot of talent. That's going to be a more competitive game because it's early. And I feel like we're talking about the coaching mismatches, the later we would have played a Memphis team, the more Dan Hurley is going to be able to implement his offense with guys who kind of know what's going on. A little bit different this year, new set of players. I think it's going to be a challenging first game. Also, it's early. So, but speaking of Coach Hurley, that's my second thing I'm looking forward to this season, is interviewing Coach Hurley. That one is not set in stone yet, but I'm working on it. And if it happens, it would be a dream come true. So I've been in talks with, as Dan Hurley likes to call it, the organization. And I'm a lifelong fan. I feel like the Locked On audience would love to have Coach Hurley on and really kind of talk through a bunch of stuff. I am a hoops nerd. Sometimes I can't articulate probably the best way that I would like to, in terms of like the nitty gritty, discussing the horn sets that they do, the different actions that they have, how they go about planning it without giving too much away. Like what goes into some of the crazy sets that we've seen this year in the last couple of years, and how many variations they have for one play. Like I would love to kind of do a JJ Redick style old man in the three conversation with him on that specific topic. But I'm also curious about other stuff, like the emotional intelligence it takes to play for him. How tough do you have to be? Like, what are the prerequisites? Like, what are the things that he sees? I know some of the things he's told other people, like winning characteristics. But I wonder if he's ever felt like him or his staff has ever been duped, where you brought someone in, and he doesn't have to name names, where you feel like a player's got winning characteristics, but then they get to his style and it's like, wow, this is a lot tougher than he thought. So I wonder if that's ever happened, because we all make mistakes, and I'd love to see if he's ever had that scenario come about. I want to thank him for not only restoring UConn's dominance, but also elevating it, giving us fans a renewed sense of pride, and probably making us even more obnoxious on socials. And then the third thing is the Big East tournament. So I know a lot of you have reached out to me about the Big 12 and some of that stuff that's been going on. I don't have any new information on that. Some of you probably believe that, some of that was for clickbait. I promise you that if you think that you've watched this show and I'm a clickbait guy, then you clearly have not been watching Locked On UConn. There have been plenty of opportunities for me to have kind of crazy, salacious stuff, in particular with the Dan Hurley saga of him potentially leaving the Lakers. I think I've maybe put out one other clickbait-ish stuff when Kentucky started sniffing around a long time ago, but it's unintentional if that's what you think it's going on, because the Big East is very special to me. And if we lived in a perfect world, I would hate for UConn to leave the Big East, but we don't live in a perfect world, guys. If we did, it wouldn't cost me like $7 for a gallon of milk. It's a silly comparison, but my point is that, the Big East tournament is something I used to do when I was a kid. When I lived in Connecticut, we take the train in and, or take a bus ride in, as I've chronicled in the past. Like, we'd have these events, right? You'd go to the Big East tournament for a couple of days. And then as I got older, living in the city, would go to the games and hang out there all day. Like, it's just, there's nothing like it. And I would hate for UConn to lose that. But I think eventually it is inevitable. And the only thing that may be wrong about what we talked about earlier this week is the time frame. But back to the actual basketball. The Big East tournament is a highlight of the season. We'll have a clear picture of whether this young team is ready to potentially three-peat. It's a pre-tournament event that really tests you if you're ready to win it all. Win or go home. No, not like the Maui where you play 3 games no matter what. And I'm excited to see how this team has evolved by then. We'll know the rotation. We'll know if he's gone, he's really chopped it down, or if everyone has stepped up and it's been impossible, so he's playing 9 to 10 guys. And whether everyone's firing on all cylinders. So it's all about execution at that point, and I can't wait to see how that unfolds. Well, when we return, got to pay some bills, but we're gonna introduce the gentlemen who do the Sliders and Curveballs podcast, a really unique father-son podcast. I can't wait for you guys to listen to these guys coming up after this. Hey everyone, summer's winding down, but the spending isn't, right? Hasn't for us. Whether it's back to school supplies, groceries, or just everyday essentials, the costs just keep adding up fast. But with Ibotta, you can earn cash back on everything you buy. It's a free app that lets you save money on groceries, beauty supplies, and even toys. Basically anything you need. The average Ibotta user earns $256 a year. That's enough to cover a shopping trip, a flight you've been eyeing, or a fancy dinner out. Plus, with Ibotta, you can cash out your earnings directly to your bank account, PayPal, or use them as gift cards. And right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying it out. Download the free Ibotta app and use the code LOCKEDONCollege when you register. That's IBOTTA in the App Store or Google Play. And don't forget to use the code LOCKEDONCollege to start saving. The Feel Good Lab. My friends in Connecticut here, just wanted to get you guys to know that the same things that fuel the best athletes in the world can still help the rest of us. Just ask our friend Cam Spencer, who does every little thing he can do to dial in his wellness, reduce inflammation in his body, and make sure he's eating foods that fuel him. And he does that with the help of one of Connecticut's best wellness brands. Here's what he has to say about it. I chose to partner with the Feel Good Lab because I wanted to elevate my performance, improve my health, and become more educated on my nutrition. Since we started working together, all of those goals have been reached. Now I am continuing to find new ways to get better with the Feel Good team, and I am very grateful for their partnership. That's Cam Spencer, UConn legend and member of the Memphis Grizzlies. 3 years ago, I had a stroke. It was a real wake-up call for me. And I started to really prioritize my health and longevity. Ever since then, I've been on a mission to optimize my performance and improve my overall well-being. When I met Ryan at the Feel Good Lab, we spoke and everything just clicked. I chose to partner with the Feel Good Lab because I wanted to elevate my performance, enhance my health, deepen my understanding of nutrition. And since we started working together, I've not only achieved those goals, but have also, like Cam Spencer, discovered new ways to continue improving. Like the at-home diagnostic test that showed me that I can't have butternut squash. Could you believe that? That was causing inflammation. So everything that I've ever used with Ryan Gresh at the Feel Good Lab, including these Sports Lab creams, Sport Recovery Lotion, are phenomenal. Here I am in week 10 of my wellness journey, and so far, I feel better than ever. Use the code CAMSPENCER, all caps, for 12% off your order and 10% and a 10% donation to Bleeding Blue for Good. All right, we're back on Locked On UConn. We have with us the Sliders and Curveballs podcast, a widely popular, national recognized father and son show about sports featured in the Washington Post. Mike and Joseph are here learning sports together, one game at a time, with over 80 shows since Joseph was age 7. That's incredible. The hobby has allowed the family to bond over their love for sports history, including Major League Baseball, NBA, and of course, UConn athletics. I bring in the duo. Gentlemen, what are you looking forward to most this season? Joseph, why don't you go first?
I mean, I'm looking forward because when I went to the open practice for season ticket holders, there was a lot of dunks and like they were doing 360 windmills between the legs. I'm looking forward to see a lot of dunks during the season.
That's awesome. What about you, Mike?
Well, for myself, I think it's all about the three-peat. Do you have a chance and the goods to tweak this team enough with the newcomers that have joined? And even though they've sent several guys today, can they do, unheard of? Just going back to back is astounding and incredible. But if they can do 3 in a row somehow with recruits manning the post, shooting guards, etc., but the nucleus, which is the coaching staff together, that is going to be the intrigue of the season. Are they getting towards the postseason with all cylinders firing, and are they ready to do it again?
It's a great answer. I brought you in later into the show. My 3 are I did a top 3. So my first one is the Maui Invitational. This is the first time we'll get to see the guys and kind of get a full picture against really good competition. And then the second one was, it's more aspirational. I don't know if you guys have done it, and we'll see. But I'm looking to interview Dan Hurley this year. And the third is the Big East tournament. Those are my top 3. Looking forward to moments of the coming season. This is really cool that you guys started this. I have kids. I have a daughter that's on the way, but I have 2 sons. A little younger than you, Joseph, 8 and 18 months. So they're not close to as a big kid as you are. What was the beginning of this? How did you guys think to have this be a thing to start a podcast, father, son, and kind of co-host it? Was it Dad's idea or was it yours, Joseph?
It was mostly my dad's.
Yeah, I would say when he was about 7 years old, I had recently found out that I had lost 2 of my college roommates. One to an illness and one to an overdose. And so 3 kids gone into a dorm room. We went to Johnson Wales University in Providence, Rhode Island. So I had been to tons of Providence games against UConn, and only one is alive today. And about a week later, I was fortunate to go to ESPN on a tour. And I looked up, and they had some rooms that were under construction. And I inquired, what were those? And they said, those are going to be podcast studios. And so when at home, I said to myself, I wonder if you could create one of these on a limited budget. I found out that we could. I discussed it with my wife, and she said, well, why don't you guys always talk about sports anyway. Maybe you can record some of those conversations. So we started off doing that. But after 2 or 3 episodes, we ran out of things to say. I said, Joseph, what do you want to talk about next? Would you like to maybe bring a guest on? And he goes, yeah, let's get Michael Jordan. Now, we were about 6 months away from COVID. And I said, well, I don't have MJ in my, but or for you kids, I don't have him in my my personal contacts list.
Sure.
But I that wrote, and so then we really started taking off interviewing authors, because Joe's a great wingman and authors like to sell books. So when we started to get homebound because of COVID, we interviewed authors, the co-author of Willie Mays' biography, Giannis Antetokounmpo's, Stephen Curry, Michael Jordan, Ted Williams, Lynn Guerra, all about Yogi. So they have a wealth of knowledge and sometimes have spent 2 years of their life researching this stuff. So they told us every single thing that we wanted to know, and it was great fun for us. And and great fun for our listeners.
That's awesome. Joseph, this is directed at you. What's it like co-hosting a podcast with your dad?
I mean, it's cool because you go to your friend, like my friends sometimes walk up to me and they'll say, "Hey, I listened to your recent show. It was really good." And that like makes me feel proud of myself that I have my own show with my dad. And the whole point was when he gets older or passes away one day, I still have like conversations together with him and with someone else too.
That is, you're gonna choke me all up here and think about my kids. That's a great answer. And Mike, when you thought about doing this, and then you got your son involved, is this kind of about passing on a legacy to him? Because I have the same kind of thought process when I inquired about potentially doing this Locked On UConn show, which is I talked to my father, who's 72 years old, and I'm 43. Almost every day when it comes to during the basketball season, at least, right? We're talking about the same stuff that you guys probably do. So was that kind of part of it? Did you have that kind of maybe relationship with your father where you were kind of talking about sports constantly? Is this something that was just kind of like spontaneous outside of going to ESPN?
It was a little spontaneous. I mean, I did lose my dad during COVID, unfortunately. A lung disorder, when COVID comes around, it will not release you. And I thought to myself, it would kind of be an audio diary, where I just really wanted to have one or two listeners, which would be my son, Joseph, and then my wife, Renee, who I've been married to for 25 years. And she said, wouldn't it be great to have conversations with your dad years from now? So I wanted to be able to pass on little thoughts. And we came right out of the gate with trying to go a little bit viral, where the very first one was, we kind of sounded like a garage band, because we weren't in a professional recording or at ballparks like we are now. It was, who is Colin? Why is he kneeling? Should Pete Rose be allowed in the Hall of Fame? And should peanuts be allowed at ballparks? So
Okay.
for a 7-year-old to try and grasp this, I wanted to get his take, and I was trying not to give my opinion. But I basically was trying to make some correlations. Like, if somebody kneeled in school during the Pledge of the Allegiance, would everybody pay attention to them? If somebody had green jelly beans during a baseball game and we found out that green jelly beans are banned, but that team beat you, should they still get the win?
Sure.
What about forgiveness? You hear a 7-year-old who is going through 7-year-old things while I'm 40 years older than him. It was really neat to see his perspective and for me to learn from it. And, we've done blind resumes on the greatest NBA players of all time, where I've gone ahead and put all of their statistics on a poster board with stickers, and he doesn't know who the player is. And I asked him, who's the greatest player by sticker count? And so it's very interesting to see the perspective of somebody that maybe has never seen things, but is looking at it from a different way.
That's great. Well, in speaking of beginning, I'm going to go to a quick promo here. College football is back, and it's not too late to catch up before the season kicks off. SEC, ACC, Big 10, Big 12. You can get it all from Locked On's stable of college experts by subscribing to the Locked On College Football Podcast. Who has a chance to make the playoff? What teams will cause chaos in their new conferences? Everything you need to know, all in one place. Sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On College Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, so now that we know how everything got started, before we get to the next segment, Joseph, when you guys do a show, do you ever, you guys, I'm sure you watch, if you don't watch, I'm sure you're aware of debate shows that are on television. Do you guys, Joseph, do you ever get like frustrated with your dad to the point where you're like, man, I can't believe he thinks like that? Like, do you ever have those moments?
There was this one big argument that me and him had over sports. It was, where is Bill Russell in the top 10? And he said number 3 because of his rings. And I said to him, you probably couldn't name 3 good centers who Bill Russell played against besides Wilt Chamberlain.
Yeah, that was, we actually had that argument in the concourse of Gamble Pavilion with other fans chiming in. He's also very, very high on Russell Westbrook, who I rank a lot lower in my rating system. But that's the word Russell causes all kinds of havoc at the dinner table for us.
That's great. Well, when we return, we're going to talk about a few more things and steer it towards UConn in particular. When we return, we got to pay some bills. So coming up after this. Sorry for the delay. If you want to take a moment, let's give a heads up to our brand new mobile game that I think you guys are going to love as much as I do. Ultimate College Football HC. It's this amazing game and simulation that you get to step into the shoes of a head coach and lead your college football program to glory. Can you imagine actually being the head coach of UConn football? From recruiting players, hiring coaching staff, to overseeing training camps and handling school scholarships, you control every crucial detail of your program. It's all in your hands. Will you be able to handle the pressure? And here's what I really love about the game. You are responsible for calling offensive plays during the game. Your strategy will not only determine the success of your football season, but will shape the future legacy of your program. Ultimate College Football HC is completely free, has no ads, and is 100% playable online or offline. You can play as you go, as you want, and when you want to. And of course, we have a special offer for you from Locked On. Use the code Locked On College Football, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Make sure to take advantage of the perk, as it will get your team off to a strong start. To download the game, visit ultimate-cfb.com, ultimate-cfb.com, or look it up on the app stores. Ultimate College Football. Begin your college coaching legacy today. All right, we're back with the boys from the Sliders and Curveballs podcast. So talk to me about the love of UConn athletics here, guys. I've seen interviews with Hassan Diarra. I've seen it with Alex Caravan. Can you point to, Mike, you go first. Can you point to your favorite moment interview-wise? I know you guys have interviewed Coach Calhoun. Could be any of the folks. It could be someone that we don't know. So let us know what has been your favorite interview and from your perspective, Mike.
Oh, well, if you can't beat Coach Calhoun. I never thought I would speak with him. If I never did another podcast after that one, I would have been satisfied with the journey. I have my phone glued to me, and that particular day after we had reached out to him, it must have been about 10 days afterward. For some reason, my phone was in a different part of the house than I was in. My wife answers, which she probably won't pick up my phone one time in the next year. And Coach Calhoun asks for Mike and Joseph. She said, "Who's this?" And he said, "It's Coach Calhoun." And she was like, "What, come again?" She was like screaming down to the stairs. We come upstairs and we talked to him for probably about 20 minutes. Now, half of that time, I'm crying on the phone because it was right around the time Stanley Robinson had passed away. And I felt like I was talking to Stanley Robinson's dad. So I offered my condolences, but as both of us had brought up our memories, I'm crying on the phone with him, and we're just talking about how a life was just cut short. We went on to talk about we would like to bring him onto the podcast. He thought it would be a great idea. We were right around COVID. I subsequently talked to him several more times to be able to work out his golf schedule. And then it ended up being that, it was like a grandfather talking to a son, talking to his grandson. You'll never hear another podcast like with him again, or interview, in my opinion. It's called Hall of Fame Advice. And we have seen and met him several times since and interviewed him again since. And whenever he sees Joe, it's like he's bumping into his grandson.
It's amazing. Can you top that, Joe?
I mean, I was going to say Jim Calhoun too, but if I had to pick another one, to Hassan Diarra, because being with another athletic player like me, and I mean, obviously we went with Alex Caravan, but Hassan coming back 2 times with us, it was really fun. We got to walk around campus with him, went up elevators. It was just fun being with him. Just sitting down talking to him was really fun before our show. And all around, Hassan's a great guy, really nice and funny. Made a lot of jokes, and I want to make him come on a third time.
That's great. Joseph, before we get into a couple of games we're going to play, I know you're ready for one. Is this something you want to do for the rest of your life? I know that you're young, but do you want to do some like media like this for the rest of your life, or do you have some other interests that you're if you're not an NBA player? Let's get that out of the way.
I have two like dream jobs that I would want to do. Number one is I want to be a sports physical therapist, so traveling with teams, being a physical therapist. I'm off to a great start with that because I just got into an academy school. Well, it's not an academy school. It's another school across town in my town, but it's like an academy is inside of it.
It's awesome.
Called biomed. So I'm doing biomedical sciences with health and stuff. And then media would be my number two probably, like calling a game or being a journalist or
that's
anything with
all great goals. All great goals. And I wish you the best on that. All right, let's play a game. You guys can both play this. Instead of start bench cut, we do start bench transfer. So, unfortunately, we're all UConn fans. I don't want just I always say this on every time I do this. I don't want anybody to transfer. But for the sake of the game, I have to give you 3 players, and you have to give me your start bench transfer. Are you ready?
Ready.
Okay. All right. We're going to go with some of the new guys. We're going to keep the guys who have been here a little bit entrenched. So I'm going to go solo ball. I'm going to go Aiden Mahaney, transfer from St. Mary's. And then I'm going to go Jaden Ross. You got to start one, bench one, transfer one.
Go ahead, Joe.
I'm going to have to go start Mahaney.
Okay.
Bench solo and transfer Jaden Ross.
Okay.
Because Jaden Ross last year in the back-to-back run, he got like no minutes. So really last year, no one really knew his full potential. I mean, in the practice, he was going like crazy, but solo from last year and this year, there's like a huge gap of improvement. His shot has gotten so much better.
And why do you take for starter?
Because Mahaney is like an athletic. He's very athletic, can shoot, can drive, can do it all.
Okay. He's already 1,000-point scorer, so you got that going for you too. What about you, Mike? Yeah, I want to hear yours too.
Solo and Mahaney. Solo, I think, is ready to break out in his sophomore year. His nickname is Muscles. We've spoken with him and interviewed him. I think that he was moving along perfectly when he was. Castle came back, ate up all. He's a set. Already has a ring with us. Knows the plays and sets. So solo definitely first. I would probably slip Jaden Ross in second because I think he's a live wire. He's athletic. He's probably going to be a lot better than most people think. He'll probably get some minutes. And Mahaney, who I really like, charming guy who's got the ball on a string, is a deft passer, and can really be a good shooter. He's the new guy. So he's a transfer. So we would probably have him in the third spot.
Fair enough. All right. Do you want to play Who Do You Want, which is my favorite game to play with guests? And I essentially ask you guys, it was inspired by me buying a minivan for my growing family. And so I wanted to know, UConn fans, who would you pick to drive with you? I know, Joseph, you don't drive yet, but let's pretend you can. Let's say in this weird world, you can drive a car. You're driving a minivan. You got my Kia Carnival, and you can put someone in the driver's seat, and you can put 3 other people behind you, so 4 total. in UConn history, men's and women's. You can pick whoever you want, coaches, players, whoever. Who's coming with you?
Well, obviously, I got to put Jim Calhoun there.
Okay.
Cannot go wrong with him. Wait, so I get 3 out of 4?
You get 3 more.
I think you get 3 more.
Oh, okay. So
Yep.
I would go, let's see, Jim Calhoun, Ray Allen, Kemba Walker, and Diana Taurasi.
I love it. That's great. What about you, Mike?
Great group. That is a great group. Let's see. That's a tough one. I'll take Jim Calhoun as well. I'll take Danny Hurley, and I'll take Gino. So that would be a raucous bunch, and it would be just Hall of Fame advice like crazy. And then, so that's 3, and then I'm going to need a player that's going to try to hopefully keep all the players and all the coaches in line. I would take Emeka Okafor, probably the greatest student athlete in UConn history, literally a Rhodes Scholar and a fantastic player. And I think that he would give me the muscle if anybody got out of hand, and he'd be smart enough to keep up with all the great conversations.
Absolutely. Well, listen, guys, this has been a great episode. I really appreciate the perspective that you guys have brought to the show in terms of, I love the father-son duo. I've said it from, if you guys have listened from the jump, the reason why I'm a UConn fan is because of my father. So when I heard you guys podcast and saw you interviewing players, I definitely wanted to get you on. So I'm glad we were able to do this. I wanted to, like I said, I want to thank you for this, and I'm going to kind of sign off now, but I can't thank you enough for making the time to come on Locked On UConn and kind of talking to the audience.
Thank you, Mark. Go UConn.
Go UConn. Absolutely,
guys. Oh, almost did it wrong there. That was great. I love those guys. I hope they can come back again. This has been another episode of Locked On UConn, a very fun one, very special one. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto, asking you to stay locked in, stay connected, make sure your toughness meter is always rising. And as always, go Huskies.